Hi, welcome to the profile where we tell stories to inspire, motivate, and empower through voices. My name is Christine Nyonsenga, and you can always find these conversations on my YouTube at Nyonsenga Christine. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel, tap the notification bell so you get to know every time I upload a new video. With me today is a young, innovative person, and a lot as he's going to be telling us on the show. Most welcome to the profile.
Thank you. My name is Herbert Mugabi, or you can simply call me Pearltales. Yep.
Pearltales. So what is Pearltales? Is it just a word, or what is Pearltales?
Pearltales basically is an online platform currently, basically online mainly. One major thing we do as Pearltales, this platform is dedicated to promoting what we would call cultural heritage or history of Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. So on Pearltales, we tell the stories of the Pearl, just like you hear the word Pearltales, the stories of the Pearl. The nation we're seeing, Uganda, has had a great history, so basically that's what we do. We want people to know where this country has come from and where we are, and that way we'll be able to know where we're going.
Oh, so telling the Pearl of Africa.
Yes, tales of the
which
Pearl.
Is Uganda.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so are you the CEO or are you working under someone?
I'm the founder and CEO.
Okay, so what inspires you to start this Pearltale?
Sometime back in 2020, during lockdown time, I was reading a certain report by the United Nations World Travel Organization. It was actually showing the different, some statistics there were showing how different countries have been performing when it comes to tourism, how different nations have been able to attract different groups of tourists. So basically my focus was on Africa. During that time, the previous year, which was 2019, globally tourism had contributed around $7 trillion to the globally tourism had contributed around $7 trillion. But of that $7 trillion, Africa as a continent had actually only 5% of that had come to Africa. And then of the 5%, around 3% was shared among the East, Central, South, and East, West, Central, and South Africa.
Okay.
So the rest, the 1% had gone to the northern part of Africa. But when I tried to go a little bit deeper to study, I discovered the countries that had received more monies or more tourists, actually they didn't have the animals, they didn't have the forests, they didn't have the different things we have, like nature tourism, as far as nature tourism is concerned. But mainly their tourism was focused on culture, like Egypt. We can talk about the pyramids. In some other parts of Africa, most of those countries are in the desert, like Libya, Morocco, and Egypt, but they don't have forests. They don't have the gorillas like we do. We have, this country, Uganda, has over 56% of the global gorilla population, but they didn't have any of that. But how come these guys were attracting different numbers of people, big numbers? And then also there's something I realized from the statistics from the Uganda Bureau of Standards. Uganda as a country, every 10 tourists that come to Uganda, 8 don't come back. Why? Because what we're promoting here as a country is basically mainly nature tourism, wildlife. So when someone comes in Uganda, spends here around 10 to 20 days, they will be able to go to the western part of the country, they go to the different parks, and they will see everything they have to see in a few days. So they don't have any reason as to why they should come back to the country. But I believed that if we promoted culture, our history, our great history, our rich culture, we would have something to sell to these people every other day. And another thing about nature tourism, I have one of the most prominent people in cultural tourism is the ED of Ndele Cultural Group. He's a Ugandan. But the first time, and every day, many people come from Europe and different parts of the world to come to Uganda to see chimpanzees. We have a very big number of primates. So there are different. There's a group of primates, but they are like colobus monkeys, the monkeys we know. But he says the first time he saw a chimpanzee, it was in the U.S. So not in Uganda. So he had gone to the U.S. But so that means these animals can be. We can say they can be imported or they can be exported. So someone can take that animal from this country to another, or they can bring it from one, like for example in Uganda, like if he was able to find chimpanzee in the US. And also we have tigers in Uganda that came from South Africa. So, but there's one unique thing that cannot be sold to any other country or cannot be taken out from one country to another, is our culture. So if you want to experience the Ugandan culture, you have to come to Uganda. So I believe that we needed to have a different approach on how we can get these people hooked in this country. We bring them here, and every time they want to have the best experience, the Ugandan experience, the Ugandan feel, they need to come to our country. But the only way we could get them come here is by offering something that is Ugandan.
Okay, so someone would want to know, like, to get a picture of exactly what do you mean by, selling our culture to them. What exactly do you mean? Because culture is broad.
Yeah, culture is broad, but the Western world has lost most of these things. They have lost, when it comes to talking about culture, they have lost most of those things. So culture has to do with identity. For example, if some of the things you can look at when it comes to culture tourism, look at our food. You can look at what is the inspiration behind the food.
Okay.
Different groups of people in Uganda have different unique kinds of food, dishes. For example,
staple foods.
Yes, they're staple foods. So, but we can try to find out why these people prefer this kind of food over the other. For example, the luombo is an amazing delicacy here in Uganda. Go to some parts of the country, there's marakwang, there is bushera, there is enturire. So all those things are different things. Imagine you are able, like now, if you come to Uganda and you see a lion, you've seen a lion. Yes. But imagine you come to Uganda with a country which has over 56 cultural diversities. When you come to Uganda, the central part of the country, you have a different experience of this culture. So next time you come back, you can go to the western part where there's the Batoro, the Banyoro, the Banyankore, the other groups. Then you go to the West Nile. They have different culture. That means if you want to experience Uganda as a country, you have to experience the different groups, ethnic groups that make up Uganda as a country. So that's why you call it the Pearltales. So these people, the way they live, whatever they do, they are inspired. There's an element of culture behind everything they do. Yes. So how food is prepared, like we can have the same kind of food, but it's prepared differently. So that is the inspiration, the cultural aspect you're looking at. There's an inspiration behind the dances, like the Baksimba, a certain king who was from drinking. So that is the inspiration. When you go to Busoga, there is a dance called Tamine Ibuga. Okay. Yeah.
So on that, what's the inspiration behind that?
Behind what?
Behind that Basoga dance you've said.
The Basoga dance, the Tamine Ibuga, they usually dance when they are carrying something on their heads. Maybe the Ibuga would be a calabash. Okay. So the way they rat, their waist are rattling. So someone would be worried, like you break the Ibuga because they are calabashes. They dance with carrying those things on their heads. But like, don't worry, I won't break it, because you just imagine how someone is dancing, but they're carrying something on their head, and they just tell you, don't worry, it won't fall down, it won't break, it won't be destroyed. So there is a meaning. We have meanings in everything, these cultures. So you go to the western part of the country, you discover the different things they do. Still, there is a message. There is something that is attached. There is a reason as to why they do what they do, and this has its origin in the culture of those people. Another thing we can talk about culture. Today, as a country, we market a lot wildlife tourism. We tell the world we have gorillas, and we are doing well. We have over 56% of the global gorilla population. We have the biggest number actually globally as a country. We have the big cats. Talk about elephants. We have the big five. And many people come here to see the big five. Like wildlife tourism is doing well, but culture has had a role to play when it comes to conservation. Okay. Like in some parts of the country, we have what they call totems. Yes, Uganda as a country, we have over 56% global gorilla population. But still, like we're saying, cultures have had a role to play when it comes to conservation. And globally, countries that are making money from tourism, like Turkey, Japan, Belgium, they don't have animals. They have historical places, they have cultural places, cultural sites, and places, heritage. They engage in something called heritage tourism. So, because these are things that we can use the word many-sided. For example, if you look at a place like Kasubi Tombs, if you want to tour and explore Kasubi Tombs, we will take years. Why? First, we need to know who built the place. Mutesa I. Now, Mutesa I, there is a whole lot of history about Mutesa I. Before he became king, he was there's a lot of history we need to learn from there, from his father. What was the inspiration behind the name Kasubi? What was the name of the house? His name, he named it Mukulu Tamakagi. No, sorry, no. He named it Mziwazala Mpanga. Now there's a whole history. Why is this place called Mziwazala Mpanga? So if you look,
why?
Tough one gives birth to tough ones. Mziwazala Mpanga. Some historians say that because he was a son of a tough man, Suna, so he named his house. But also others say, and I believe this one is true, that every time you went to the king's palace, you could see the princes and the princesses in the palace. So you could see the tough ones, like mu Uganda bachita ngolengere segwanga mu Rubiri. You could see these people in the palace. So when you looked at, so these people had their names. For example, Mwanga's house was called Mukulu Tamakage. So a king, or any elderly person, or anyone in position of power, is responsible for anything that happens in his house. So nobody in this house in your house can lead to the fall of your house, but you are responsible. Then Chwa's house, today we call the Mengo Palace, was named after. Chwa named it Twekobe. Twekobe simply means let's work together, let's come together and work together. So there's a whole lot of history connected, and there are inspirations behind these whole things. So now talking about back to the Kasubi Tombs. Kasubi Tombs is the number one when it comes to the best architectural structures in the whole world. It's number 13.
Wow.
In Africa, it's number 1. Yeah? So now we need to understand the history of Mutesa I, but still we need to know that Mutesa, before he shifted to Kasubi, he had a palace in Lubaga. So he had, and that place we've talked about, Lubaga. There's a whole history behind it. Lubaga in Uganda would mean strategize or planning. So it was a place for planning, was Kubaga, something like that. Oh. So he moved from there because there was some venereal disease that had attacked the place. So he moved to Kasubi. But that's the place where he met Stanley. Now talking about the Kasubi tombs, there are 4 other kings. There are 4 kings in that, and it also there's a history that in the history of Uganda Kingdom, Kasubi tombs was the first place to have more than one king buried in the same place. So it had never happened until the time of when Mutesa died. His son Mwanga, when Mwanga died in exile, his body was brought into the Kasubi tombs. Culturally in Uganda, when a king, during his reign as a king, his palace becomes his tombs. So kings were buried in their palaces, and then when he's buried, the palace becomes a tomb. Okay. So that's why you find it's only Kasubi tombs that you find they're called tombs, because they are for kings. But in every other palace in Uganda.
Okay, so why, when they are tombs, what do they use them for? They don't stay in those places?
No, they don't. So because the body of the former king was in that. Okay. So the remains of the king are in that place. Whichever was his palace, main palace, becomes his tombs. So, and the next king is not supposed, culturally, the next king is not supposed to reign from the same house where his father was. So there's a lot of things that changed when we talk about the Kasubi tombs. And these are things we need people to know. Okay. So if you talk about just the Kasubi tombs alone, we can spend days and days talking about the same thing.
Okay, so what is the objective? What objective do you have behind Pearltales?
Basically, we need to teach our people. We need to inspire people to travel or to tour. But besides touring and everything else, we need to awaken our people to conservation. Every time we don't see the value of anything, we'll just treat it as trash. So we don't see any value in it. But the reason why we are enjoying the world around us today is because our forefathers, people that came before us, they conserved this generation. They conserved for this generation. So these places we call wildlife or national parks, they were protected because of certain cultural practices. They protected them. Go to the eastern part of the country, the way people do everything. So these are things, the reason why we want our people to learn these things. First of all, we need to conserve these places. Many of these places have been destroyed because people don't know. If they knew, Marcus Garvey, I think it was an American, he said that a people without a history, they're like a tree without roots. If you need to know where you are or where you're going, you need to know where you've come from. So recently, at the beginning of this year, I think in January, we had the State of the Nation address by the president. But this is what happened. So you've heard of what has happened. The foreigners have cut off some aid to the country because of certain things the country has decided to, certain policies. But now, President Museveni came with a document. This document was written by Stanley, and Stanley, who was one of the explorers that came to Uganda. He writes how he found Uganda. Ugandans have been very hardworking people. So we are talking over, that is 1860 something. So Ugandans had very good plantations. So people were doing everything well. So this country, so the president went and read history and discovered this country was doing well without even aid. So now, going back and try to revise and read through the history of this country, we are able to know how to go about what is happening around today. For example, without aid, how did we survive? Not just even survive, but thrive without aid. So he went back and read, because these things were written of our people some years ago. So that's the reason why we want to teach our people, know that this country you're seeing today, we've come from somewhere. If you know where we've come from, then you know where to go. So, and this is, so the moment our people learn, they'll protect these things. And these things will be preserved to the next generation. Now today, like we have the Kasubi tombs, is the only place we have that can show you of how our people were innovative. Imagine a house has been there for over 100 years. We have the Kabaka's Lake in Ndeba. It was dug with small holes, like of this size. They are locally known as obusimo. There was no plastic. It has been there for over 100 years. It has never flooded. So we had engineers without schools. These people didn't know about physics and everything. But they knew how to balance the lake. There's a man, the chief engineer was called Ndikumulaga. He knew how to balance the lake. He had never gone to school. He was a naturally trained engineer. Through his natural wisdom, he knew how to balance the lake. Over 100 years ago, the lake still, the water levels are balanced, and that place has never flooded. Why? Our people. So learning these things, we know that we've been having people. We have had innovators, we've had engineers, we've had people. Civilization was here way before these whites came. So learning about that will help our people. Every time we don't think that we are limited because of what we don't have. So imagine in a time where there was not a lot of resources, people were able to do big things like having the Kabakas Lake there.
So you're basically creating awareness, self-awareness among Ugandans, among Africans at large.